This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Doug Smith. It's Wednesday at 2:30, and the software worked properly today, and we're getting started on time. It's time for our 2:30 Monday through Thursday podcast. This is a podcast where you will hear the science behind what actually happened in this opioid crisis. And let me tell you, I am fired up and angry today. Um, I don't. I'm on the final chapter of the book, and the final chapter is my take. And one of the things I've been having trouble finding is evidence of how they justified the dosing of the OxyContin. Okay, Percocet, which was oxycodone, that's what that's what most oxycodone was prior to OxyContin, was 2.55, 7.5, and 10. And here comes OxyContin, out of the box at 10, 20, 40, 80, and 160. Okay, to put that in uh, comparison, okay, 180 milligram OxyContin tablet, that'd be the same as 72 2.5 milligram Percocets. Okay, so you had a whole bottle of oxycodone in one tablet. Okay, and so I wanted to know, what was the research behind this? How did they come up with those numbers? Okay, because I suspected they came up with those numbers just so they could empty out the warehouse full of oxycodone, fill it up again, and sell it. Okay, this oxycodone, it didn't come from Purdue. This oxycodone, Purdue's manufacturer of OxyContin. This oxycodone didn't come from Purdue. It came from Johnson and Johnson. So clearly Johnson and Johnson had an incentive to fill that warehouse up full of oxycodone, sell it, fill it up again, sell it, fill it up again, sell it, fill it up again, sell it. That's how you make money. Okay, you make money by selling a warehouse full of oxycodone. You make a lot of money. You make billions of dollars by filling it up over and over and over and selling it, selling it, selling it, selling it. That's how you make money. Okay, and the way Johnson and Johnson was able to fill that warehouse full of oxycodone was by finding a loophole in the international treaties. There were three international treaties: one from 1961, one from 1971, one from 1988, and there was a loophole in it. Okay, nobody knew it was a weakness. Really, not a loophole, it was a weakness. The treaties were all based on morphine, quantities of morphine, and quantities of gum opium. Opium. Okay, and so what Johnson Johnson had done was, well, they genetically modified the poppy flower, poppy seed, so it didn't make any morphine. It made all thebaine and poppy straw. And the treaties didn't cover that. So lo and behold, they, before you know it, they got warehouse after warehouse full of oxycodone here in the United States. DEA didn't lift a finger; they were asleep at the wheel. And now you got to move that oxycodone. You got to sell it, and it's going to be real hard to sell and real hard to move at 2.5, 5, 7.5, and 10. So they put those doses at 10, 20, 40, 80, and 160, so they could empty out that warehouse full of oxycodone, fill it up again, empty out, fill it up again, make a bunch of money. So I wanted to know, how did you justify those dosages? And finally, I found a letter to a U.S. senator, and it actually was in response to the U.S. senator kind of asking the same question. Hey, how'd you get those dosages? Okay, and the senator was Senator Hassan out of, I believe, New Hampshire. Pretty sure it was New Hampshire. Okay, Senator Maggie Hassan. Okay, and the letter came from the then director of the FDA. It's a 22-page letter. I mean, that's how these pseudoscience people do it. They just try to overwhelm you with the volume and pretend they know what they're doing. Okay, but it was signed by the Janet Woodcock, who was a director for what's called CDER, Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. That's who we're dealing with at the FDA also, is CDER. And in the letter, what you find out is there simply wasn't any science behind these dosages. Okay, you begin to realize they made the dosages up just so they could move oxycodone out of the warehouse. There's no science behind the dosages. I didn't realize that. I don't think most people do realize that. Okay, they really didn't do a whole lot of studies at all. They did one study with comparing a sugar pill versus a 10 milligram OxyContin versus a 20 milligram OxyContin. Okay, so basically they compared OxyContin against a sugar pill. Okay, and these were in patients with chronic rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, now these are people who, rheumatoid arthritis. These people have, severe daily pain. Okay, which do you think is going to give them better pain relief, the sugar pill or the oxycodone? I mean, that's not a study, folks. That's not how you evaluate medicines. But that's what they did. And this is why I say pseudoscience is so dangerous. This is not real science. Okay, as a physician, if I want to evaluate the effectiveness of a pain medicine, I don't want to compare it to a sugar pill. I mean, compare it to Advil at least. Compare it to an existing therapy. But comparing OxyContin to sugar pills in people with rheumatoid arthritis, that's not science, folks. Okay, that's not how it's done. Okay, and that got them, I guess, the 10 and the 20 milligram. There's nothing about the 40. It just comes out of the blue. Okay, and then there was no research behind the 80 and the 160. They were just approved. I guess they weren't emptying out the warehouse fast enough with the 10, 20, and 40, so they add on an 80 and a 160. And the point was, there was no science behind this. Okay, and this is a lot of what the book is about. It's about the fact that no, the psychiatrists don't practice science. No, they don't. Okay, and think about what we read yesterday about the psychiatrists. By the way, I don't want to run over time today, so I'm going to read a quote from the book today. Okay, by the way, everything I'm talking about here, the dosing of OxyContin, the warehouse full of oxycodone, and so on, all that's in chapter 8 of the book. I'm very excited about the book. But let me read you an excerpt from chapter 6, because Alex has it up on the screen here. He has it up on the screen because I asked him to. Thank you, Alex. So let me read this before we run out of time, which we essentially already have. And this is from chapter 6. Chapter 6 is entitled An Epidemic of Cardiovascular Deaths. Okay, and here's a quote from the book. It should come as no surprise that all researchers want their studies, their data, their findings to be impactful. But in situations where one is measuring parameters of death and misery, such as adrenaline toxicity and its impact on humans, the knife cuts both ways. The data is wanted. The data is needed. But what the data reveals as to the level of suffering experienced by the victims is heartbreaking. We knew that the victims were suffering. They had described a level of suffering unimaginable. But to actually see it in a lab report had an impact on all of us that will never be forgotten, myself included. We had expected elevated adrenaline levels. This was clear by the studies by Gunn, Brody, Dell, Chang, and Kinebaum. But it was one thing to have an expectation of abnormal elevated levels of adrenaline. It was another thing entirely to see blood levels coming back from the lab as simply incompatible with life. These were adrenaline levels that we did not know were humanly possible. And then the realization that this was day number 3 of sickness for the participants, day number 3. 3 days of unimaginable horror. 3 days of adrenaline toxicity. How much can the human body endure? What did this do to their minds? We called an emergency halt to the study and notified the IRB. And that's the quote from chapter 6. By the way, a number of you have reached out saying you want to be in the first wave of mass tort lawsuits. Yeah, I want to hear from all of you. Okay, Alex and I we got to get all the book uploaded to the editor, and then what we'll have to do is we'll have to go to the Smith Genetics Research website and build it so that the people you guys who want to be in the first wave of mass tort lawsuits, all I ask is that you sell 20 books. That's how we pay for stuff. Okay, and there's money. It takes money to file these lawsuits. Okay, so selling 20 books, $8 each. That's fair. That's fair. Okay, 160 doesn't cover the cost of a mass tort lawsuit, but it offsets it enough, and we figure there'll be more books sold. So that's how we came up with the number 20. A little more science than the dosing of OxyContin. But anyway, what we'll probably do is we'll take the first letter of your first name, the first letter of your last name, the 2 letters for the state you live in, and maybe the last 2 numbers of the year you were born. So I would be DS MD 60. That would be my code. And then we give you that code. You give that code to whoever buys the book. They enter that code when they buy the book, and you get credit for that book. And when you've sold 20 books, you're now on the list of people who to be in the first wave of mass tort lawsuits. You're helping us get the word out about the truth. You're helping us sell books, and you're helping everybody by signing up to be among the first of the mass tort lawsuits. So we will hold here for today. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday. Please, everyone, like and subscribe us. Post this on your social media, everybody else's social media. Everybody have a safe day, and we will be back tomorrow. Alex, thank you for everything.